Hello students, welcome to today's session. So far we have discussed evolution of programming languages, programming paradigms, principles of OOP. Now these two topics are left, all principles working together and differentiation between POP and OOP. Actually these two topics are just a revision kind, okay? Hello students, welcome to today's session. So far we have discussed the following topics: evolution of programming languages, programming paradigms, principles of OOP. The remaining topics are all principles working together and the difference between POP and OOP. So these two topics, okay, it will be like a revision, okay, because there is nothing new which we will be discussing in this topic, so you can take it as a revision, okay. So we'll not spend much time here. I'll quickly explain the example given in your book. So the topic here is all principles working together. That means how abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism, how they are working in this example of a mobile phone. Okay, so the first feature, abstraction. Okay, in a mobile phone you have a simple interface, isn't it? Through that simple interface you are able to operate the phone, okay, and you don't have to worry about the complexity. So this is known as abstraction. Abstraction is hiding something and showing something. So all the complexity is hidden, but there is a simple interface connected to the complexity through which you can interact. Okay, so that is abstraction. And what is encapsulation? Encapsulation is the practical implementation of abstraction. Okay, if abstraction is the idea, encapsulation is the implementation. Okay, the next point is inheritance. So for inheritance, let's see the picture here. So we have got the base class, the mobile class here. Okay, this mobile class has got three functions: dial number, start call and end call. Okay, all the child classes here, they will by default have these features, isn't it? Dial number, start call, end call. They don't need to rewrite these functions. Okay, for iPhone, Samsung and MI, the base class will be the smartphone class. Okay, that means the smartphone has got all the features of a mobile phone, and these three classes here have got all the features of the smartphone as well as of the mobile phone. So this is how you will understand inheritance. Okay, so the benefit of inheritance is that you don't have to rewrite the features. Okay, all the common features you can describe it once in the base class, and then you can keep on deriving many specific classes from the base class. Okay, this process is known as inheritance. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism means the capability of an object to behave differently. Okay, so let's consider here this mobile class again. So mobile class is the base class. Okay, so this mobile class has got the capability to behave as a smartphone or as a QWERTY phone. Okay, it can behave as an iPhone X, as it can behave as an iPhone XR, it can behave as a Samsung phone. So the mobile class, okay, has got the ability to behave either as a smartphone or as a QWERTY phone. Okay, so this is known as polymorphism. Okay, for a detailed explanation you can refer to the previous video. Okay, I've already explained in detail using coding examples. So if your concept is not clear regarding inheritance and polymorphism and abstraction and encapsulation, you can refer to the previous videos. Okay. Now let's see the difference between POP and OOP. Okay. This will be just a quick revision because we have already discussed this in the previous video. So let's start. Okay. What is POP? POP is a top down approach, whereas OOP is a bottom down approach. That means what? In POP you start with the main problem and you break it down into many sub problems. Okay, you keep on dividing the main problem into smaller problems until you are not able to divide it further. This process is known as top down approach. Okay, and you start making the solution for each of the smaller problems, and by completing the smaller problems you'll finally integrate and you'll have the complete solution. This is known as top down. But in object oriented programming the process is bottom up approach. Okay, so bottom up approach means you start working from the smaller solutions and you combine the smaller solutions to bring up the complex system. Okay, this is the bottom up approach. Next point is, in procedure oriented programming the focus is on procedure. Procedure means how to do. Okay, the focus is on procedure or algorithm. Okay, and in OOP the focus is on data. In POP the abstraction is at the function level, whereas in OOP the abstraction is at the class level. That means what? The abstraction in POP is provided by the functions, whereas the abstraction feature in OOP is provided by the class. Okay, now let's talk about the division. So the sequence of events in a larger program is divided into functions. Okay, that means the program in a POP approach is to divide the functions, is to divide the main program into several functions, whereas the approach in OOP for dividing is that you'll divide the whole program into many objects. Okay, and all the objects coming together will represent the solution. Next, regarding interaction. Okay, so interaction with the program is via direct function call, whereas in OOP the interaction with the program is via function defined in the class only. What is the difference? The difference is that in POP you can call the functions directly. Okay, or functions are the way through which you can interact, whereas in OOP the way to interact is via the functions which are defined in the class. Okay, in POP the functions are accessible everywhere throughout the program, but in OOP the functions are their accessibility depends upon the way they have been declared. Okay, remember I spoke about private and public. Okay, so if the function is public it is accessible outside the class, whereas if it is Private, it is accessible only within the class. Okay, so that is the difference. Next point, real world is represented by procedures operating on data. Whereas in OOP, real world is represented through objects, okay, and the operations which can be performed on these objects. That means in POP, the entity is function, okay. That means the real world is represented through the functions, whereas in OOP the real world is represented through objects. Okay, nothing complicated in this. Remember that in OOP everything is an object, whereas in POP everything is a function. Okay, that's the difference. Then next point, data and functions are separate in POP. Recall the diagram in which we saw that the main function was divided into many functions. Okay, so the functions and data, they are not grouped in any manner, isn't it, in POP? Whereas in OOP the data and functions are grouped. Okay, so that is the group, that process of grouping is known as encapsulation. Next, data security. Okay, in POP we saw that data has got no security, since all the functions from anywhere in the program, they can change the data, they can access the data. Whereas in OOP the data cannot be directly accessed. Okay, if other objects want to access the data of a different object, okay, they will have to go through the functions of that particular class from which it wants to access the data. Okay, so the data is never directly accessible in the case of OOP. Next point, a function can access any other function's data by calling that function, and that's the case of POP. And in OOP only the data whose access has been granted can be accessed by another function. This is the same point. Okay, let's see the next point, limited and difficult code reusability. So in POP it's not easy to reuse the code. If the program size is very large, it will not be very easy to reuse the code, whereas in OOP it is easier to reuse the code. Okay, the next point, code is difficult to modify, extend and maintain in POP. This is because all the functions and data, they are intermingled. Okay, we don't know which data is supposed to be modified by which function. Okay, so this becomes a problem, and because of this it is difficult to maintain the code or extend it or modify it. Whereas in OOP it is relatively easier to modify, extend and maintain, because in OOP every single unit is independent of another unit. Okay, and what is that unit? It's an object. Okay, each object by itself is independent. Okay, so that is why it becomes easier to modify and maintain the code. And lastly, we have examples of languages which use the POP paradigm. Okay, so the languages are C, COBOL and Pascal. So these languages use the POP paradigm, whereas Java, C++ and C Sharp, they use the OOP paradigm. So with this we conclude chapter 1. From the next video, I'll be starting chapter 2. So let's stop here. Thank you.